work with a web server. So you can see in my screen I have a web server available. It is called XAMPP, which is a very popular web server available in internet. It's a free open source product. So if you are a developer and if you are especially working on PHP development, you need to have a backend or backend development knowledge, plus you should have a environment to support for PHP language. So in this case, we recommend to use the XAMPP server as a web server to use. So before we start, the first thing is you need to set up your XAMPP application. If you go to this apachefriends.org site, you will be able to freely download this application. So it is available for different operating systems: Windows, Linux and Apple OS. So depending on that, you can download the application, which is nearly 100 megabyte capacity. So once you download this, it's a few step process, so you need just to start installing it. There's a wizard option available, so when you follow the wizard option, and then you can easily install this application into your computer. So when you are installing it, the most important thing is they are asking where to install this application. So that is the most important part. So when you are asking that, what you can do is you can provide the location where your C drive or the place where you have this application program file applications available. So in my case, I have my program files in C drive, so I gave this path to the XAMPP package to install the application in the C drive. So you can see once you install this package, you can see there's a folder created by this XAMPP application, and the folder name is XAMPP. So this is considered as your server environment in your local computer. All the server related applications are installed onto your computer and maintained, and this is the folder where all those application related configuration files available. So it's very important that you should provide the proper place when you are installing this application. So if you want to see, there are a lot of videos available, and at the same time in this site also they are providing the option to understand how to install the XAMPP into your computer.
XAMPP is the most popular PHP development environment for Windows, OS X, and Linux.
I keep this for you to look at, and it's a very simple process to install into your computer. Once you install this into your computer, you will be getting a control panel. So when you go to your start menu, you can search with the term XAMPP control. So when I click on this XAMPP control, so you will be able to see there's a small window appears with some controllers. So you can see there's a version also mentioned. So I'm using version 3.2.2, and you can see there's a list of modules or the applications which XAMPP has. So you can initially start these application. One is Apache and the other one is MySQL. So even you don't need to start the MySQL because it is related to the database handling. But important application is Apache, because we know Apache is the application which is interacting with the outside request with the web server. So that will be the controlling part of the web server. So therefore we need to start that application immediately when you are going to work with the web server. So you can click on this button. So you can see I already started this. So once you started, what happens, it will be set to stop, and if it is running properly, you will be getting a green color box. So if I going to stop this, you can see it's getting removed, and then again if I press the start button, you can see it's turned to yellow color and then green color. If there's an issue in your application, what happens, this will be turned to red color, which is indicating there's a issue occurs when starting this application. And at the same time, you can see that in the down window it shows us how the steps were started. So it says starting attempting to start Apache, status change detected, stop is for the previous one, and when I ask to start, it says attempting to start the Apache app, status change detected, running. So which is saying it's good condition and it's running without any errors. Now once you do that, you can see there's a port heading available which says 80 and 443. So these are very important sections we're going to look at in later cases. Now your server is running, so what you want to do is you need to connect to this server through the browser. So we know that if it is a web server, how you identify or how you communicate with this web server, it's done with an IP address. Or else if you don't use the IP address, what you need to do is you need to refer the alias name. So for example, if it is Facebook, Facebook has an IP address, and at the same time it has a name. So it's very easy to remember a name than the IP address. So since we are having a web server in our computer, it has an IP address as well as it has a alias name. So the IP address is 127.0.0.1. If you don't want to use the IP address, then there's a alias name for this IP address. It is localhost. By referring to one of these, you can connect to the server. So when I am saying connecting to the server, what happens through this our browser, it will get connected to the XAMPP folder, because we know that XAMPP folder is our server environment. So in this, out of these folders, there's a one location this browser is directing or sending the request. So that is done to the folder called htdocs dashboard. So when you type localhost or 127.0.0.1, what happens, your request will immediately pass to the server. On the server, Apache will be the application which is handling this request at the beginning. Once Apache handle this request, it will ask for the server-side scripting language to work with this and provide the file. So in our case, when I press enter, you can see it directs to a folder called dashboard. So the same folder which is available in here, dashboard folder, so which is in XAMPP htdocs dashboard. So then we have small issue here, like, so we just provide the path, but we didn't ask for a file to open, but we see there's a file is opening. So this is the concept. So when I'm typing the localhost, I don't have any intention to view a file. I just want to connect to the server. That's my intention. But we know that from the server side, we can't just allow him to access our files as the customer want. So in that case, since I'm not requesting any file, our Apache application will consider a default file to retrieve from our web server and show it to the customer. So how does this concept work? It's a simple thing. The Apache application looks for a file with the name index, or sometimes this will be considered as home or the default. So all these three terms will accept by the Apache application. So if the Apache application can find a index name file, then what happens? It will retrieve from the file, and then that file will be sending back to the client computer. So in our case, it happens like that. So inside the dashboard folder, there has to be an index file. So if you look at the dashboard folder and search for an index file, so you can see I'm having a file called index.html. So if I type this file index.html, you can see that in this case I am requesting the exact file with the file name. So that file is the file that we view in previous case as the default file. So that is how the default files are working. So you need to make sure that you are giving a proper name. So it can be an index, default, or home. And the next thing is, now when you are providing the IP address, we may not give any port number, but it should be provided. In our case, what happens, we have a dedicated port number for the web server connections. So that is, I already mentioned, as port 80 and 443. So port 80 will be the default port for the web server connection. So because of that, when you just provide the IP address, your browser will append to this IP the port number. So if you want to directly apply the port number, how you can do is with the host name or the IP address. After that, you should put the colon and you should provide the port number. So that's also same page we are opening because we provide the actual detail. But in case if I try to provide a wrong port number, what will happen? The browser tries to look at this localhost server and it will find out that server, but what happens, it tries to send this request to the server using a different port which is not accepted by the server. So in that case you will get a result saying that it's a rejection, the server is rejecting your request. So I will put the same port again, so then I'll be able to access this server. So in XAMPP package, you have full open configurations available. So you have the option of just going and changing this configuration. For example, I'm going to show you how to modify this port number. So when you are going to do that, you need to be able to access the configuration files of the Apache. For that, you can click on this config button and click on this first link. So that is opening httpd.conf file. So if I show you the location of this file, that is available in XAMPP Apache conf. There you can see this file httpd.conf. So if you go down, so you should be able to see a port number. See in here it listening to a port called 80. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify this. I'll use a different port number, but when you are changing this you need to make sure that this port number is not utilizing by any of the any other application in your computer. What happens if it is utilizing, you may not able to use this port again into the a different application. So 1234 port will not used by any other application. So I'll save this file, close this, and then I'll go on to the control panel and modify those configuration settings available in this control panel. So you can change the configurations by clicking on this configuration button, and since I want to change the server and port settings, I'll click on this, and you can see all other for applications they also having their own ports, so we can modify them whenever we need. So I'm going to change the port number for the Apache. So I'll change this to 1234, save this, save. So since I have done some configuration settings, we need to restart this server. So I'll stop this and then start. Now when you are starting, you can see my port number is listing in here. Without port 80, now this server is running and accepting request to the port number 1234. So if I try to go with my old port number, you can see I'm unable to reach this site. But if I use 1234, now I can reach this site. And if I manually provide the port number, it will ignore and move with the 1234. Right, so you can see it's not working with the port 80, but it will work perfectly with the port 1234. So this is how you can change your port number, but I recommend to keep this as original settings because port 80 will be the default port for all these web servers. So if you are modifying this, what happens, you need to inform to your customers that you are not allowing to view it with the port 80, so everyone has to use the new port number. So I'll change this back to the original values. Save this. Then I'll stop this and start. Now you can see it's work with port 80. Right. So The next thing is I'm going to show you that my custom web page, how I'm going to put it in the server. So I have very basic HTML page with the term index.html, and you can see it's a very basic HTML with the head and the body and some HTML codes also available. So this will be the output if you're going to look at from the location where I save it. This is not saved in a web server, this is just saved it in my local computer, right? So what I can do is I can simply save this in our web server. So I can go on to C drive, XAMPP folder, htdocs, and the dashboard, and for this I will create a subfolder called vtutorial and save this file with the term index.html. Now in my web server I need to point into that location. I know it's already inside the dashboard, our requests are going, but from that onward I need to provide the path for the place where my index file save. So I already create a subfolder inside the dashboard called view tutorial. So you can see when I send the request to look at the vtutorial folder, I will get the result of the index page. I didn't ask for the file, but you see this, you see that the Apache server send me the index.file. So in this tutorial I just run through some of the basic things that you should know when you are going to work with the XAMPP server. So especially you should be aware about this port, the port numbers, how you're going to modify, and how you're going to access the web server using the IP address or alias name, and where you're going to host your file. So we'll meet on in the next tutorial working with PHP server-side scripting language as well. So we'll stop for today. Thank you.